I need a message for Islam Makhachev.
I will knock you out, bro. Knock you out, bro.
Knock you out?
I will bring that belt to Brazil. The first welterweight champ from Brazil.
I'm sure Michael Morales or Carlos Prates were watching that and thinking, oh, I can beat this guy, right? That will make them very confident. However, do they have the same takedown defense that Ian Garry had? Probably not, right? That's what those fights are going to come down to. Can they stop Islam's takedowns?
The UFC's probably going to give him Carlos Prates. Even though Michael Morales weighed in for this fight, he's been kind of like pretty vocal about it, that he knows that he's next. If the UFC wants to make this right, Kamaru, hold on real quick. If the UFC wants to make this right, you have to make Carlos Prates fight Michael Morales, #1 contender. That's one.
So after what you saw with Ian Garry, does that give you more belief that Carlos Prates now can go out there and potentially beat Islam Makhachev?
I'm going to pick Carlos Prates. I'm not going to lie. I don't know why. I just feel like he's going to win. I don't know why.
Were you going to pick him though before you saw this Ian Garry fight, or is it the Ian Garry
I was already starting to feel it, to be honest. Before the Garry fight, I was starting to be like, dude, it's going to be Garry or Prates that beats him. Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Right now! I'm gonna bust like a pound! Right now! Let's go! Who this guy? Up there now, bro. Up there now. Let's go right now! Right now! Let's go!
Ariel Helwani gives Makhachev full credit for another elite performance and growing legacy, but believes there's more to accomplish before the GOAT conversation.
We were so blown away by how he looked against Jack Della. By the way, let me be very clear here. That was an amazing performance. Like, he looked great in the first 2 rounds. I thought the second round was a potential 10-8. And then, third round was probably his worst round. Fourth round, clearly 2 of the judges gave it to him. I don't agree. And then he comes back and he rallies, busted up, and wins the 5th. So I'm not taking anything away from Islam whatsoever. I do think there's a strong case to be made that he is among the greatest of all time. I still think that was his 7th victory in a title fight, his 6th title defense. A reminder that John Jones had 16 title fight victories. DJ's record is 12 in a row as far as title defenses are concerned. And so while he did surpass Anderson's record, I still think there's a little bit more work to be done. He did tie Khabib's victory record, 29 wins. He does have the loss against Adriano Martins. So these are things that are all adding up. I don't think he is the GOAT per se.
The debate is already heating up. Demetrius Johnson calls Prates the more exciting matchup for Islam, expecting it to be a much-needed win.
On Carlos, so I think the Carlos versus Islam fight is going to be way better than Ian Garry fight.
Demetrius Johnson compares Islam's head kick that dropped Garry in round 2 to catching someone who keeps slipping away, describing Gary's constant movement that way.
If you're trying to get into bed with your wife, and each time you get into bed, she jumps out and runs away from you, you ain't gonna get no booty. But if your wife stays in bed with you and you're in bed, there's gonna be a lot of bone smuggling. All right, so keep that in mind when you watch this fight, is that you have one that's trying to run away, disengage. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And Islam was smart to stay with him. Right hand, that lands perfect, right? Beautiful right hand from Islam Makhachev. And it wasn't a hook right hand. It's more of a slapping, a Muay Thai or kickboxing right hand. Throws him right into the thing and whack, booey. Beautiful. Beautiful technique from Islam Makhachev.
Meanwhile,
Islam has also revealed his plans for what comes next. He wants to stay active, eyeing January while staying open to fighting before year's end.
After Ramadan.
Bro, we have to fight before Ramadan, 100%.
Before Ramadan, okay. So you're shooting for January.
Of course. January, end of the year, we have to fight.
Even the end of this year?
Yeah. Because I'm not like 20-somethings. I'm 34 years old and I have to fight soon as possible because I'm not cut much weight. I don't have like any big injuries, just have to maybe double check my nose. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before this fight also, I give my approval to fight in White House it's long story why I'm not there, but I told beginning of the summer I want to fight. I call Ali, I call everybody, I want to fight. But it's not something I chose and I make, you know.
Makhachev isn't picking sides. He'll fight either man, but wants Prates and Morales to settle it between themselves first.
Who can give me a good fight.
Luke Thomas highlights what this means for Islam's resume. His complete skill set still translates against naturally bigger fighters, even at welterweight.
The basic expectations of what most of us were looking for here, to be quite honest with you. It wasn't very, very surprising in that sense. And I don't know how you guys feel about this fight. Do you feel like you were let down by it? Did you feel a little bored by it? Certainly the co-main event was deeply unimpressive. Maybe you feel like you didn't get your entertainment's worth, but I feel like for me, the standard of excellence that Islam Makhachev routinely sets is he is one of the best fighters I've just ever seen. He is one of the most, if not the most complete fighter at an elite level that I've ever seen. And when I say complete, I mean taking that skill set and using it to move up in weight and through challenges.
Sonnen also thinks Garry exposed something in Islam's game that Morales could exploit.
So we got a number of things out of tonight. But more than anything, we have a reason. We have a reason to be here. And has Islam proved that he's the best? Yeah, at 2 different weight classes, he sure has. And the 2 weight classes changes all the numbers of all the guys that he was trying to surpass tonight. Changes everything when you're doing it multiple weights. Are we certain nobody can beat him? Are we certain there's not a way for somebody to beat him? No. No, Ian Garry did not poke a hole in the boat of Islam's invincibility aura, but he showed that one might exist. And I do think that Morales versus Islam, for the first time ever, just became interesting.
Daniel Cormier says Islam deserves serious credit for becoming a 2-weight champion, but he also knows Makhachev holds himself to a much higher standard than most fighters would. In Cormier's words, most people would be thrilled just to defend a title in a 2nd weight class, thrilled to win 4 of 5 rounds across 2 scorecards in a fight like that, but Islam judges himself differently. Cormier points to the pressure that came with this fight, and to a streak he calls insane, 17 straight wins, breaking a record many thought would never fall, Anderson Silva's mark. Sneeko goes even further, ranking Makhachev among the greatest fighters ever and calling him the best in the world.
Islam Makhachev is the greatest UFC fighter of all time. Yes, he had a loss, but he has had a 17 consecutive win streak. He's holding a belt in the welterweight division and the lightweight division. He's defended his welterweight belt. 17 consecutive wins. Yes, there was a fluke knockout early in his career, but have you seen anybody bounce back like that? He beat Anderson Silva's record. Okay? Habib, he had undefeated record. You know, he never got dropped, never bled, but he didn't hold 2 belts. Only in lightweight.
Sean O'Malley narrows it to Prates and Morales, giving Prates the edge but calling Morales the tougher test.
Fight's going to be bigger than ever. Who's next for Islam Makhachev? We got Michael Morales and Carlos Prates. Michael Morales he's huge. So is Carlos. They're both huge dudes. Morales is coming off a victory over Sean Brady, Gilbert Burns, Neil Magny. Gilbert Burns, I think, was on a pretty bad losing streak, a little bit older. Neil Magny, also a little bit older. KO, KO, KO. His last 3 fights were KOs. So I'm curious, what do you guys want to see? Would you guys want to see Michael Morales? I think Carlos Prates has a little bit more hype behind him. Carlos Prates is ranked number 1.
Thomas favors Morales too, citing the undefeated contender's size, strength, and physicality.
Do we think Prates is next? Do we think Morales is next? I think honestly Morales might be next, but who knows if they give him Prates. Who would you rather see? Now, me personally, I'd take either. I'd rather see him fight Morales. I think Morales as a physical beast, green, but a physical beast, presents an interesting kind of challenge for Islam. How do you deal with a guy who might be defensively stout and just a f***ing tank? at 170. And I think Prates is like deceptively strong, but the grappling differential, right? I mean, how many times did Ian get Prates down? Ian got Prates down 4 times. It's like, bro, if Ian can do that, I mean, you would imagine Islam can do that.
UFC 330 is behind him. Focus shifts to what's next for Islam Makhachev. Prates wants the title. Morales is waiting. Islam wants to stay busy. Drop your pick below. Michael Morales is another serious option. Demetrius Johnson calls him one of the world's best wrestlers, a huge test for Islam.
Islam Makhachev, and that is him taking on King Kong himself, because he's a massive guy. I think he cut 52 pounds in order to make the weight for the backup. So the biggest thing with that one is Islam's just gonna have to take out a bigger monster, and I think he can. And guys, I'm really happy for Islam Makhachev. He was so kind to come on the Mighty Cast, talk to us. He didn't have to.
Another analyst gives Prates the edge over Islam, pointing to his kicks, range, and finishing ability as real threats.
So with Ian Garry, does that give you more belief that Carlos Prates now can go out there and potentially beat Islam Makhachev?
I'm gonna pick Carlos Prates. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know why. I just feel like he's gonna win. I don't know
Were you
why.
gonna pick him though before you saw this Ian Garry fight, or is it the Ian Garry
I was
fight?
already starting to feel it, to be honest. Before the Garry fight, I was starting to be like, dude, it's gonna be Garry or Prates that beats him. I don't know why. I think it's because like the calf kicks will be the fact that Islam kind of didn't really have an answer for those oblique kicks at all, those leg kicks, and the body kick. I really expected Islam to be body kicking more. Obviously, he landed that big head kick, and that was cool to see. That was a great moment, but the body kick really bothered him, and I do feel like, okay, like Prates can definitely kick this guy and keep him at that long range for at least like 3 rounds. Like he can make it competitive, and I think he has way more power.
Dan Hardy points out that welterweight has forced adjustments. Bigger opponents like Ian Garry bring a different physical challenge than lightweight did.
Makhachev stepped up into a weight class where guys are, and I'm going to use these words very, very clearly, people are weighing in 15 pounds heavier. They're not 15 pounds heavier. Like they've got more muscle mass, they've got bigger frames. Like you're getting guys that are in there that are like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". Like some of these welterweights are getting really, really big, broad shoulders, long arms, long legs, difficult to take down because there's always a limb that's going to connect to the floor. Yeah, Makhachev's game has had to change, and I think this is where Makhachev will adapt if he stays in the welterweight division, if he wants to stay and try and keep defending the belt. I think it's going to be much more about hustle.
UFC 330 is done, and Carlos Prates wants Islam Makhachev's welterweight title next. He's calling for a December fight with the champion. Henry Cejudo says Garry had the range advantage, but failed to capitalize on it enough.
What do you think? Like, looking at the fight, the way Islam fought and the way that Ian fought, what are the positives that you would take away from Ian and what he did in that fight?
Yeah, he started off really good with the fight, with faking that kick, like making Islam think, staying in the center in the beginning. But then it was just he waited too much for the little guy to get off, start exchanging, and then boom, Islam was on the legs, taking him down, wrapping him up, and then controlling him. Ian never really had an urge to get out, dude. Like, he was never controlling the hands. If you notice, like when he had him against the cage, like he was just against the cage and just kind of chilling there in round 1. If you can show that respect of getting up and show this dude like, hey, this fight is going to be on its feet, it changes everything. But he allowed Islam to just stay there, hold his grip, and never really peeled the hands or attempted any of that or try to get his back against the cage.
Not everyone was impressed. Danny Segura calls the UFC 330 win a hard-fought decision, arguing the size difference at 170 led to fatigue and long stalemates that limited Islam's usual dominance and finishing ability.
I knew this was going to be somewhat of a close fight. It wasn't going to be an easy fight for Makhachev, but in the end, I thought he was going to win, and I thought he was going to win by decision. I didn't think he was going to be able to submit Ian Machado Garry or finish him with strikes. So more or less what I expected, and yeah, not surprised in either direction really. One thing that kind of surprised me a bit. Obviously, we knew that size was going to be a thing, but to the degree that we saw, I expected this fight to have more action. There were a lot of stalemates, both in the striking. They would just stand each other and stare at each other, and against the fence as well. So I would say that.
O'Malley explains Morales could be trickier for Islam, mainly because of his wrestling and grappling ability.
Carlos Prates, I'd say, has a more impressive resume. Both guys, interesting fights. Carlos Prates smokes cigarettes, so I think that's kind of like an advantage as far as who gets the next title shot. Both super interesting fights. Again, a long striker like Ian Garry. I think Michael Morales would be more interesting when it comes to like the wrestling, the grappling, and just digging underhooks and not getting taken down. Whereas Carlos might get, single leg outside, taken down. I haven't really seen his jiu-jitsu much. But both interesting fights. But realistically, I don't think Islam's going to turn around and fight anytime soon. So it's like, do they do Carlos versus Michael Morales? Or, yeah, probably not. I mean, they're both going to, I don't know.
Talk shifts back to Michael Morales. Chael Sonnen points to his size, power, and explosiveness as a fascinating stylistic matchup for Islam.
Watching Islam tonight, I cannot tell you what his weaknesses are. He really fought everywhere and he fought well. But my interest in seeing Michael Morales take on Islam did not exist until now. Just now is when I realized that Morales could do a better job defending takedowns than Ian, at least in theory. And that Morales can engage a little bit more explosively. I can't say Morales' combinations are better than Garry, but I think that his power is. And all of a sudden, Morales starts to look like a very interesting proposition.
Aaron Bronstetter flags Prates' size, reach, and power as real threats, though wrestling defense remains the biggest question.
Carlos Prates is an interesting one because Prates he's a big guy, 6'1", he has the reach. The only problem is the wrestling, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that makes me wonder.
But he's got the power, and I mean, as long as he's able to survive the wrestling early from Islam, we saw that he got a little bit tired as it went down, and when that happens against a guy who's as aggressive as Carlos Prates, I think that can be a difficult situation if you get into those deep waters against someone as aggressive and dangerous as he is. So he's an interesting one for sure.